Okay, cool. All right. The first thing I want to do is get something done that I should have done a long, long time ago, and that I've intended to do over and over again for going on 2 years. But every time you guys turn on the camera, my mind goes, woo! Right? So whatever I thought to do is a shout. I don't ever write anything down. You know from looking at me, I don't have notes or anything. So this is all extemporaneously coming out of me. There are certain people that I want to say hello to, and if I tighten up, I'm afraid I'll forget their name or screw their name up or something. But there's a person named Kelly Suzanne Salisbury. And Kelly, I don't know if you are still watching or not, but I want you to know I've always appreciated your comments and best wishes. And I've been wanting to say this, hi and hello. And, you should write me at oldsoup, double P, S-O-U-P-P. At gmail.com. Any of you, Jackie, any of you guys that are still out there, please, I'd love to hear from you. All right, so I got that one done. Next, last week we were talking, and Anik had mentioned something from the opening of the eyes, and I just wanted to qualify so that everybody would understand. Hang on, where's the Lotus Sutra? Here. Okay. I made a clarification for you. I just want to let you know to confirm. It says right here, this is the translator's note from Burton Watson, who is an expert on Asian philosophy, Buddhism and so forth, right? On page, what is that? 17? In Roman numeral 17 is from the translator's introduction. He goes into an overview of all of by the way, everybody, that's why I say over and over again, you got to read from page 1, or you miss a lot of stuff because you want to just jump right into the text. And there's a lot of introductory information that you'll miss if you don't start from page 1. Okay, so here, this is in translator's introduction, and it says Buddhism, and I would read the whole thing, but I know I've got a lot of other stuff to read. So I'm just going to cut to the one most appropriate and important sentence. You know where to go find this now, okay? Buddhism, it should be noted, took over from earlier Indian thought. The belief in karma took it over, okay? Because that's from the Vedic tradition, right? The Vedas, okay? According to this belief, all one's moral actions, whether good or bad, produce definite effects in one's life, though such effects may take some time before manifesting themselves. According to the Indian view, living beings pass through an endless cycle of death and rebirth, and the ill effects of an evil action in one's life may not become evident until for future existence, but that they will appear eventually is inescapable. Hence, only by striving to do good in one's present existence can one hope to escape even greater suffering in a future life. Okay, just talking about karma, right? Buddhism vehemently denied that there is any individual soul or personal identity that passes over from one existence to the next. To suppose there is simply to open the way for further craving, but it did not accept the idea. But it did accept the idea of rebirth or transmigration. All right, which you may say, well, aren't those two the same? No, they're not, for a reason that I'll explain another time. And taught that the circumstances or realm into which a being is reborn is determined by the good or bad acts done by that being in previous existences. And so then, going back to then again, this is from the Life of Nichiren Daishonin, and this is actually I don't know who authors this. This is the Angi Kuden. So this is the orally transmitted teaching. So Burton Watson is the one, I believe, that is saying this as well. And so he says. On page, again, this is in the very beginning of the book, well, page 25, I guess that would be right. It says, the Kamakura shogunate sentenced Nichiren to exile in the island province of Sado in the Sea of Japan. Heino Seiman, however, planned to have him executed in secret. In the pre-dawn hours of the following morning, he had a group of soldiers take Nichiren to a place called Tatsunokuchi, or the Dragon's Mouth, on a beach near Kamakura where executions were performed. But just as they were about to carry out the order to behead him, a brilliant object appeared in the sky. As Nichiren described it later, a brilliant orb as bright as the moon burst forth from the direction of Enoshima a small island off the shore, shooting across the sky from southeast to northwest. The soldiers, terrified, abandoned their execution attempt. This incident is known as the Tatsunokuchi persecution. Okay? This event is extremely significant in the context of Nichiren's lifetime teachings. He mentions in the opening of the eyes, exactly where you're talking about, written in 1272, where he states, on the 12th day of the 9th month of last year, between the hours of the rat and the ox, this person named Nichiren was beheaded. It is his soul that has come to this island of Sado, and in the 2nd month of the following year, Snowbound is writing this to send to his close disciples. Now, President Kate is going to tell you what soul means. Okay? Because we already know soul, the concept of soul as we know it in Judeo-Christianity is not what we're talking about when they use the English word soul in these translations. If you look, there will be 22 places in the Gosho where they use the word soul when they do the English translation. Okay? So you have to understand what President Keita explains is, he says, the passage may be interpreted as follows, Nichiren as an ordinary person died, while the soul of Nichiren as the Buddha survived. This is a figurative indication that he had cast off his provisional identity. That's why I said, remember, this was to reveal his true identity. This is okay. So this is a figurative indication that he had cast off his provisional identity or role as an ordinary person and revealed his true identity as the Buddha. We each do this when we attain Buddhahood. Okay? In technical terms, this is called casting off the transient and revealing the true. That's what Shakyamuni did in the 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. All right? In this new role, Nichiren described my life, or more literally, soul, in sumi ink, in the form of Nichiren inscribed my life, or more literally, soul, in sumi ink, in the form of the mandala known as the Gohonzon. With faith in the Gohonzon, Nichiren states all persons can manifest their innate Buddhahood, which is the meaning of attaining Buddhahood in one's present form or body. In his teaching, this concept is repeatedly referred to in the record of the orally transmitted teachings, which is why it's qualified here. So when we're talking about soul, what I'm gathering from this, they're talking about life essence, okay, or the true identity. What is your life essence? Your life essence is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is Buddhahood, okay? So that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about a recurring kind of thing. They're talking about life essence. Okay, and then from volume 1 of the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, again, you have to go from the very beginning. Here are translator's notes. Again, this is from the Gosho. I think this might even be from Burton Watson, but Burton Watson participated in this. It comes to mind. Okay, the Japanese kokoro, or shin, which is customarily translated as mind or heart, has no exact English equivalent. That's the problem. There are all these kinds of things that have no exact English equivalent. So they have to do a reach to try and create a segue for Westerners to understand when they read it in English. For it is a term that encompasses the whole of one's mind, spirit, emotions, volition, and psyche. It can also indicate life as a psychosomatic entity. Thus, when one encounters the word mind or heart, one should understand it in its widest possible sense, just like the word soul. Don't go back to a concept of a recurring identity that's fixed. All right? All right, so then also last week, by the way, thank you for so many people watching last week's video. It's already gotten a lot of views. At the end, as I talked about the fact that we were running out of things to read, my good sister Theodora, the votary of the Lotus Sutra, suggested through the Facebook group that I could either read these 6 volumes of the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra, okay, which I've already explained to you guys why I won't read it right now, and I'll say it now so that if Teddy hasn't heard me say this. This is in the process. We were just in Japan last year, and we were at the SGI headquarters, and I asked about these. These are all being retranslated right now, okay? And so this is, again, like these, sort of like a dialogue between four guys, and then what they're doing is they're condensing it so that it's a single flow of conversant information rather than a dialogue between four people. They're taking the four people and creating a text from that particular content. Okay, so I'm not going to read these until I know that there's no way for me to get my hands on the newly translated ones. Okay, this is from like 2000 to maybe 2003. These are a few years later, just 2004, 2005, 2006. Okay, I'm going to read from this tonight because it's going to be referenced twice in what we're going to read from the pamphlet. So I'm going to read you that part. If I'm going to read anything more besides the specific study materials, it would be these 4 volumes, which are called The World of Nichiren Daishonen's Writings. Okay, because it would be still going in the flow of President Ikeda's lectures. But these, again, are a dialogue between 4 people, which is what makes them a little kludgy to read, all right? And then the other thing that had been suggested was that if we couldn't read these, maybe we would read The New Human Revolution as a continuing study item. The reason that I'm not reading The New Human Revolution is, first of all, I have all but 2 of these, okay? So I've got them all the way up into like volume 27 or 28, something like that. So I've got all of this, but the thing is that, once again, this whole issue of translation is going to pop up from now for the rest of your life, because it's always going to be that way. Believe it or not, if you already own volume 1 through 5, they've already been revised. Okay? So if I read you this, it wouldn't be the current text, even though they're that current. Okay? All right, so that's that. And now I can get on with continuing from, we stopped last week on My Life is an Entity of the Mystic Law. But before I start reading the rest of this, I'm doing pretty damn good. I'm going to get through it. All right. I just wanted to go back to the part last week that's very important for everybody to understand. And I want to just read 2 paragraphs, reread them, as a segue into jumping ahead to page 20. This is from page 15. Again, although all people are entities of the mystic law and originally endowed with the life of Buddhahood, unless they fight off the dark clouds of fundamental darkness, their Buddhahood will not actually emerge. Now so this is basically saying, and he's going to say in a minute when I get into this part, just chanting Daimoku isn't enough, all right? So if you think just as long as you chant, that's all you have to do, no, it's not that simple, okay? No matter what you do, if you chant, you will advance, but you'll need to advance, okay? So it says, will not emerge. Simply chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo as if it were a magic incantation will not enable us to manifest our innate Buddhahood. And I think that that's something that's missed by a lot of people, because they think as long as they sit in front of the Gohonzon and they just keep after it and that's why people that have problems that last years and years and years, that's the problem. They're not seeking anything more than make this go away. Okay, when you're doing that, you're treating the Gohonzon as though it's outside of you, whether it's an influence outside of you. Okay, and if you're asking the Gohonzon to save you or help you, rather than realizing you're the only one that can save you. You provide the cause for the protection. The Buddhist gods don't look down and say, oh, there aren't gods up there hanging out. Okay? This is 2021 almost, okay? We know and understand these things in a different context than they did in 13th century Japan. Okay? Simply chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo as if it were a magic incantation will not enable us to manifest our innate Buddhahood. As mentioned, Myoho Renge Kyo is the essential law of the universe, and the greatness of Nichiren Buddhism lies in its essential practice, chanting the name of the law. To establish this path to revealing our Buddhahood, however, we must wage an inner battle against the fundamental darkness in our hearts to describe this struggle in a word, it is faith. And it's faith in the teaching. And the teaching is what I just read to you. So if the teaching is saying it's not a magical incantation, and that's a huge mistake to conceive of it in that manner, or to continue to utilize it in that manner, then to continue to do that is ignoring the teaching. We're supposed to have faith in our mentor's correct understanding to guide us in the most expeditious, powerful, and correct manner. And that's why I read this. Okay? So now jumping over to page 20. And we're starting again. You ready? All right. Going back to the Go Show. Okay. On attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. Nevertheless, I'll put it right here where you can see it. Nevertheless, even though you chant, yeah, you can read it from the Go Show itself. Page 3. Okay, where it says the paragraph that starts nevertheless.
Nevertheless.
You got it?
You go ahead.
Okay, nevertheless, even though you chant and believe in Myoho Renge Kyo. Now this is going to be the Daishonin. That's the reason why I just read all this stuff. Nevertheless, even though you chant and believe in Myoho Renge Kyo, if you think the law is outside yourself, you are embracing not the mystic law, but an inferior teaching. Inferior teaching means those other than this Lotus Sutra, which are all expedient and provisional. All are expedient and provisional. No expedient or provisional teaching leads directly to enlightenment. And without the direct path to enlightenment, you cannot attain Buddhahood, even if you practice lifetime after lifetime for countless kalpas. Attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime is then impossible. Therefore, when you chant Myoho and recite Renge, you must summon up deep faith that Myoho Renge Kyo is your life itself. And now Mr. Saito is going to go into overdrive to clarify and drive home what the essence of that point is. And understanding that and living what he's going to describe here is the difference between wanting and getting there. Wanting to get there and getting there is nothing more than understanding this point and incorporating it into your belief set and your perception of yourself. Okay? Continuing on page 20. Nichiren Daishonin admonishes us that although we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, if we think it exists outside ourselves, then what we practice is no longer the mystic law. So if we approach the Gohonzon as though it's something other than our mind of the Buddha, we're mistaken. It's that piece of paper is not what's endowed. Your life is what's endowed. Do you understand? Now that is the object of devotion. That is the means for bringing forth this internal Gohonzon. But this internal Gohonzon is the mind that allows you to think and perceive all the things that we're talking about. Okay? So he says, it would be an inferior teaching then. To perceive the Gohonzon as something, that's like a wish-granting jewel, all right, is not to perceive it correctly. He says, therefore, we could not attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. If we don't perceive it correctly, we will not attain Buddhahood in this lifetime, no matter how many times we say Nam-myoho Renge Kyo in front of the Gohonzon, because we're not trusting the mentor to perceive the truth. He says, for this reason, he teaches. This is throughout the Gosho he's saying this. And we've read enough, you know all this, right? Okay. For this reason, he teaches, each of us must develop the conviction. What's the conviction?
Belief.
Not just belief, the heartfelt belief. A conviction is something that you would stake your life on. Okay? It is the basis of your life. It's the basis of the way you think about things. That's a conviction. It's not changeable. No one can change this. Once it becomes a conviction is a conviction. That's what conviction means. Okay? It says, for this reason, he teaches each of us must develop the conviction that my life at each moment is Myoho Renge Kyo. That Myoho Renge Kyo is my life itself. And that the name of my life is Myoho Renge Kyo. To understand that, because that's the predication of you being a Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one. That's the estate of actualizing Buddhahood in your present form. He says, we must chant Nam-myoho, top of page 21 if you happen to have this pamphlet. We must chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with this sort of confidence. That's what that conviction, the word conviction, that's where it's kicking in. Confidence, he says, which will enable us to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. Nichiren says, if you think the law is outside yourself, here he refers to viewing Buddhism as a teaching concerned with externals rather than being about oneself. So if you've been brought into this teaching and you think that this Buddhism is about chanting to overcome your problems and getting stuff and just fixing maladies or issues that you want to be different, rather than its purpose is for you to attain Buddhahood in your present form, you've missed it. You've missed it. You didn't graduate in the steps of understanding that should be there. Okay? And you must rethink how you're perceiving things. I just talked to somebody who talks about somebody they know chanting 10 hours a day, but everything's messed up. Well, then that person's probably chanting to the Gohonzon as though it's something that's going to deliver them from the problem that they're chanting 10 hours to overcome. And since they don't understand it's themselves that have to solve that problem, they'll keep chanting that 10 hours and that 10 hours and wondering, why haven't I gotten the benefit? Why hasn't it changed? Anybody that has issues that seemingly just don't change really need to look at how they're perceiving themselves, not just the Gohonzon, but themselves. Do you perceive yourself as Myoho Renge-kyo? Are you a Buddha exactly as you are? That's what the teaching says. If you don't believe that or don't perceive that, then you're not following the teaching. You're following an inferior teaching. Do you understand? Even though you're chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Is everybody with me? Yes. That's the whole gist of what I'm about to finish reading here. Nichiren says if you think the law is outside yourself, here he refers to viewing Buddhism as a teaching concerned with externals rather than being about oneself, about fixing things rather than attaining Buddhahood. For example, some may revere Buddhas and Bodhisattvas but view their own lives as insignificant or even dishonorable. This means they are looking at Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as a special class of human beings, the very act of which disparages themselves. For this reason, even if such people appear to have strong faith, they actually conceive of their lives as having nothing to do with Myoho Renge-kyo. The Pure Land School, and that's why I said there are a lot of people can seem to have strong faith, but you don't really know unless you understand how they perceive themselves in the Gohonzon. The Pure Land School exemplifies this way of thinking. The Pure Land School teaches that Amida Buddha lives in the Pure Land of perfect bliss far to the west and that he will take the faithful to this Pure Land in the afterlife. Pure Land Buddhism teaches that the Buddha exists neither within one's life nor in this world, and that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have no direct relationship with those living in the here and now. Any religion that seeks salvation in the abstract or the absolute tends to focus on things far removed from ordinary people. Furthermore, such religions tend to give rise to intermediaries between the absolute. For example, God. Okay, you've got priesthoods, you've got all kinds of authorities between that and any church or any sect, right? Or the Buddha. So he's saying the God or the Buddha, this higher realm of being, and ordinary people. Furthermore, such religions tend to give rise to intermediaries between the absolute, God, the Buddha, and ordinary people. For example, God, the Buddha, and ordinary people. By virtue of being closer to the Buddha or God, the clergy is viewed as superior to ordinary people. That sort of discriminatory view, which is the essence of Nichiren Shoshu priesthood, is also a way of thinking that the law is outside yourself. So again, we weren't taught to think this way openly. I mean, you had to have a mentor that was a Japanese SGI member to perceive this 30, 40, 50 years ago. Nichiren clarifies that to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with this perspective is not the correct practice. to enable one to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. This letter, written early in Nichiren's undertaking of his mission for widespread human happiness, is already a refutation of the Nichiren Shoshu priesthood. Since the inception of the Soka Gakkai under the first president Tsunesaburo Makaguchi, members have regarded Buddhism as a teaching about their own lives, about their attainment of Buddhahood, and about establishing peace in their world. Based on this Buddhist view, SGI members have developed their faith in chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is why Kosen Rufu has made such great progress. Members of the Nichiren Shoshu priesthood, concerned only with priestly privileges, reacted negatively to the SGI's view of faith. That's where the whole problem started. The SGI had a specific view based on Josei Toda's enlightenment. While some priests recognized the correctness of the SGI, the majority tended to abuse their religious authority. During Japan's feudal age, there was a government-sponsored parish system that encouraged Buddhist priests to exert great authority over ordinary people. This system promoted for the lay believers a subservient relationship to the priests. The Nichiren Shoshu priesthood, which, remember, you were asked me, then what was their practice? And I told you, the priests are the ones that did all the daimoku. The priests are the ones that gave okos and had studied the Gosho. Regular people were not encouraged to practice that way, to read the Gosho or to chant abundant daimoku regularly, every day. The Nichiren Shoshu priesthood strongly asserts such priestly authority today. Nikken Abe, the previous high priest, attempted to destroy the religion dedicated to Kosen Rufu, built by the Soka Gakkai, in favor of reviving a priest-centered doctrine. Because of the high priest's actions in this regard, we say, Soka Gakkai, that Nichiren Shoshu priesthood committed slander of the law. The priesthood has strayed fundamentally from Nichiren Buddhism. As Nichiren says, if you think the law is outside yourself, you are embracing not the mystic law, but an inferior teaching. Here, an inferior teaching refers to teachings that are incomplete or disingenuous. We can consider this passage as Nichiren's refutation of the Nichiren Shoshu priesthood. In general, religion tends to center on the clergy, which it does. But Nichiren was opposed to this. Think about how he writes the Gosho. He's always talking about priests, not with like reverence, but sort of like disdain. Okay? But Nichiren was opposed to this based on the Lotus Sutra's essential ideal that all people can attain Buddhahood. Nichiren transcended religion's clergy-centered tendency and its potential for authoritarianism. From the beginning, this Buddhism has been a teaching of reform. He established his central teaching of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as a way for all people to attain Buddhahood. In this letter, Nichiren expounds on the meaning of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the foundation and practice of Nichiren Buddhism, because he repeatedly admonishes us not to seek the law outside ourselves. We can transcend the destiny of other religions that fall into formality and authoritarianism. Nichiren's admonition not to seek the law outside ourselves may be considered his fundamental standard for evaluating religion. If we view the law as outside us rather than as innate within all human beings, we become prone to disparaging others or ourselves and to undervaluing the importance of fighting for each person's happiness. Religions that promote an external source of salvation religions that teach an external source of salvation tend to devolve into schools in which maintaining the authority and livelihood of the clergy at all costs becomes the basis of religious practice. Dalai Lama. Pardon. Nichiren's admonition to this letter is a general refutation of this tendency. In our practice, we strive to chant with the confidence that Myoho Renge-kyo is our lives. We challenge ourselves to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with firm conviction in our capacity for absolute happiness and for manifesting Buddhahood in this lifetime. So again, what's the goal? It's not to get all the stuff you want. It's to attain Buddhahood in your present form. Then you don't have to worry about getting all the stuff you want, because you will have gotten all the stuff you want in that process. Okay? Furthermore, we strive to practice for the happiness of others. This has been the orientation of Soka Gakkai members since the beginning. About this passage, President Ikeda comments, he is urging us to decide and believe that we ourselves are entities of Myoho Renge Kyo, just as he was. There's no difference between you and Nichiren Daishonin. That's why I was able to say last week he was an ordinary human being, because he's no different than me. He's no different than Daisaku Ikeda. He's no different than any of us, right? Okay, so we can do what he did, and we do it exactly the same way he did it. The mystic law is the great beneficial medicine for relieving the sufferings of all people. It is also the wonderful treasure trove for realizing human happiness. We need to live out our lives based on and dedicated to the mystic law. We need to fill and solidify our lives with this great law. Now that's from volume 1 of this, and if I have time, I'll go back and read from page 127 to 130, but there's going to be another quote in here. But it would be very good if I can get to this, if I can get through the rest of this text first. He says, okay, so this goes on in quotation marks. I am Myoho Renge Kyo. Each of us must so decide. It is up to you. It is you who makes your life one with the mystic law. Because this is based on faith. Faith in the teaching. The teaching is I am Myoho Renge Kyo. So anybody who wants to give me shit whenever I talk about my Buddhahood, I got news for you. He's going to qualify that you all should be saying that. All right? This is what was in Nichiren's heart when he taught Myoho Renge Kyo. With this law of Myoho Renge Kyo, we become genuinely happy and help many people, many others do the same. We bring peace to our nations and to the whole world. This is Nichiren Buddhism. The basis of all these is Myoho Renge Kyo. President Ikeda continues, the mystic law is eternal. It is the wellspring of all things. When we perceive that our life is one with the mystic law, when we perceive that there's no separation between the two, we experience the eternity of life and boundless energy wells forth. Nothing can destroy this. No matter what happens, we enjoy a state of complete freedom because you cannot kill me. That is the life state of Buddhahood. Therein lies the profound significance of chanting Myoho Renge Kyo. Myoho Renge Kyo is the fundamental eternal law of the universe. All phenomena appear from the depths of this great ocean called the mystic law and return to it. All things are in a constant state of flux. What does that mean?
Moving, not stable.
It means that they're all changing. They're always in a constant state of changing. They're not ever static. But what's he saying? He's saying all things are in a constant state of flux. So we ourselves, we know every moment we're aging, although we don't see it.
Right.
The earth is aging and changing. What used to be a path is now a road. 150 years ago, it was a path.
Right.
Okay? Everything, the environment is constantly changing. We're now going through global warming that didn't exist 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. Everything is changing. Okay? So we know from modern science that someday the sun is going to go into a giant white dwarf or whatever. It's going to consume the first 3 planets outright. Earth's going to get burned up by the sun expanding when its hydrogen is being blown out. Okay? So at some point in time, the Earth is going to die.
Oh, before that, I think.
Oh, of course, of course.
We are doing great for that.
We're headed in that direction. I'm trying to get to this point of flux. This all things are in a constant state of flux. Isn't just talking about you and me. It's everything in the universe. Okay? What is eternal is only the original state, the mystic law. Okay? The primary building block, which gives rise to and embraces all things. The state of Buddhahood enables us to freely manifest the unlimited power of the mystic law in our lives and in our actions. Our lives are inherently at one with the mystic law. We just have to realize that, and not just realize it with our brain as some sort of subject we would have read in algebra class, but with our life develop this conviction. That's called faith, and the kind of faith we're supposed to have is doubt-free faith, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you come to that realization and that oneness. Our lives are inherently at one with the mystic law, but we're not able to utilize that reality unless we perceive it. And we can only perceive it with the mind of faith and the mind of doubt-free faith, because we will be attacked by devilish functions trying to dissuade us from having that correct thinking. To help all people, it continues on page 25, to help all people experience the benefit of being at one with the mystic law is the purpose of the teaching of Myoho Renge-kyo. Renge, the lotus blossom, indicates the mystic law's unlimited power to create positive value. Pardon me. Everybody's with me, right? Through this power, many benefits blossom from within our lives. As the teaching of the true aspect of all phenomena explains, all things are manifestations. All things are manifestations of the mystic law. That includes everything in the solar system, everything in the galaxy, and everything in the universe. And the membrane theory, once it's proven. As mentioned earlier, however, when the dark clouds of disbelief and delusion envelop our lives, and what's that normally preceded by? What creates that? A shit life condition. When we don't chant Daimoku to the Gohonzon, when we start thinking it's about what we know rather than what we're doing, we're full of shit. Okay? And little by little, we begin to degrade in the same way. Okay? So it says, as mentioned earlier, however, when the dark clouds of disbelief and delusion envelop our lives, we cannot reveal the unlimited power of the mystic law because we're no longer living with that conviction of mugi-washing doubt-free faith. This is the cause for the sufferings of birth and death and lifetime after lifetime. This is what will keep you from manifesting Buddhahood in your present form. We can stop this by breaking through delusion and ignorance with faith, thereby revealing our lives as the complete manifestations of Myoho Renge-kyo. Those who have done so are Buddhas, and to do so is the purpose of our lives. We have been born as human beings in order to savor the power of the law of Myoho Renge-kyo. Humans have the superior mental capacity to make this possible, but because the workings of our minds, humans have the superior mental capacity to make this possible, but because of the workings of our minds, we humans also experience a great deal of suffering. Some may even think that the sole purpose of the human mind is to create suffering, but when we come to realize that the meaning of our lives is to completely enjoy the power of Myoho Renge-kyo, we can then view hardship as the spice of life with which we can savor the law's wonderful taste. In this regard, Josei Toda, the second Soka Gakkai president, states, attaining enlightenment does not mean becoming a Buddha or trying to become a Buddha. Now, do you understand how he says that or why he says that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Attaining enlightenment does not mean becoming a Buddha or trying to become a Buddha. A Buddha isn't anything different than what you are already at this moment. Mm-hmm. So you're not becoming anything. Mm-hmm. That's what he's saying. Attaining enlightenment does not mean becoming anything. Mm-hmm. It's what you already are. Mm-hmm. All right? Rather, it means awakening to the fact that we were and will be a Buddha from the eternal past to the eternal future. That includes right now then, right?
Yeah.
This is in accordance with our sincere belief. Again, this comes down to faith in Nichiren's teaching that ordinary people can manifest the supremely noble state of Buddhahood just as they are, not by becoming perfect, not from going from a shade of gray or black to suddenly becoming sparkling white. You can be the Buddha and be black in terms of your life. It has nothing to do with anything more than what that last sentence just said. This is in accordance with our sincere belief in Nichiren's teaching that ordinary people can manifest the supremely noble state of Buddhahood just as they are, no matter how you are. And the concept of the true aspect of all phenomena. The fact that we ordinary people, the fact that we are ordinary people is a secret and mystic expedient. And the truth is that we are Buddhas. I'll say it again. The fact that we are ordinary people is a secret and mystic expedient, and the truth is that we are Buddhas. The Gohonzon also exists within us. That's what I've been talking about over and over again. It's the Gohonzon that exists within us that becomes manifest when we chant Daimoku to the Gohonzon in the Butsudan. In other words, so again, I'm not making that up when I say it, it's right there. The Gohonzon also exists within us. In other words, deep faith means to believe that the Gohonzon inside our altars is our lives. That's why that's the case. Do you understand? All right. Sincere and honest faith is what is most important. To develop such conviction, however, is a most difficult task. Why is it a difficult task? Because no matter how much you want to believe this or do believe it, you're going to be constantly attacked. You're going to be constantly have your circumstance challenged. All right? And in certain times you're going to go, why isn't this being fixed? Okay? All right, so since sincere and honest faith is faith that doesn't ever give up or give in to those circumstances. Sincere and honest faith. This is what is most important. To develop such conviction, however, is a most difficult task, for we often allow the lesser ego to control our lives. The nine-world entity, rather than to let the 10th world come out in that nine-world reality. Nine-world reality. The reality of life is that it is a succession of worries, one after another. For this reason, it is important to decide. This is again, to decide. He's talking about conviction again. He's talking about this doubt-free faith, this mugi washing, that regardless of whatever's going on, you can't kill me, you can't change me, I will not give up. You know, flip you the middle finger, devilish function, seriously. I will kick your ass. That's the conviction. He's saying the reality of life is that it is a succession of worries, one after another. That's the truth. That doesn't change for anyone just because of what I'm talking about here. For this reason, it is important to decide, my life is Myoho Renge-kyo. With this realization, we can courageously challenge and triumph over all manner of worries, because we're not worried about whether or not there will be a resolution. We know there will be. We're going to be the Buddha and show that there's a resolution through our faith in order to lead others. That's the point. With confidence that we are Myoho Renge-kyo, we never have to run away. We can challenge every obstacle head on. Whether we can bring forth courage as an expression of our confidence or faith is the key to victory in life. Whether we can bring forth this courage as an expression of our confidence or faith is the key to victory in life. So it takes the heart of the Lion King. Don't forget, heart and mind is the same damn thing. I just read that to you. Okay? All right, so overcoming our cowardice and bringing forth the courage to challenge each obstacle, this is what is most important. No matter what negativity arises, and I've had some serious negativity arise. You have too. You can't touch mine, but I know you know what I'm talking about. No matter what negativity arises, and has that not challenged you? Has that not tried? It's done its best to knock you off the horse, yes or no? Right? That's its purpose, okay? For you to strengthen through the exercise of not giving in. That's how you can encourage somebody else. You can do this. You can do this because you've done it yourself, all right? This is what is most important. No matter what negativity arises, we must challenge it all without retreating even a step. We must develop profound confidence. Confidence is conviction again, that we have enough power to do this. And if we don't, then again, we're chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. We're not going to get the effect that we're anticipating that we should, because we're not correctly embracing the Gohonzon with the correct faith. Do you follow?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That power is Myoho Renge Kyo. We must develop profound confidence that we have enough power to do this. That power is Myoho Renge Kyo. On the contrary, if you fear and complain about your obstacles, you're choosing to believe that the law is outside yourself. Each of us must guard against this pitfall. Nichiren writes, Nichiren's disciples cannot accomplish anything if they are cowardly. From the Teaching, Practice, and Proof, WND, page 1, page 481. He also proclaims the need to have the courage of a lion king on persecutions following the sage, WND 997. That's what I just said a minute ago. You got to be a samurai. What is most important is to develop courage based on faith. What happens when you do that? What is this develop courage based on faith? You have faith, and that resulting courage allows you to defeat a powerful enemy. Mm-hmm. That reality that you've experienced then adds to your fat layer of conviction. Mm. The devils can't get to you. You pile those experiences on one another. Nothing can touch you. Yeah. Okay? This is how we develop doubt-free faith. Mm. We have to have the faith to believe the teaching and go after everything on the basis of how we're taught to pursue defeating it. But then that victory cannot be something that we question. Was that really because I chanted? Oh. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So what is most important is to develop courage based on faith. When the dark clouds are dispelled, the sun, which was always there, illuminates the whole world. Likewise, when we challenge all obstacles by bringing forth our courage, our inherent Buddhahood emerges. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the life of Buddhahood that arises through courageous faith. Faith, or conviction, is the cause, and Buddhahood is its effect. And cause and effect are one. You understand that, right? The simultaneity of cause and effect. This entire causality of Buddhahood is called Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. All right? Nichiren writes, continue on page 27 at the bottom. Nichiren writes, you must summon up deep faith that Myoho Renge Kyo is your life itself, from page 3. Unless we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with that attitude, with such faith, we are not practicing the Myoho Renge Kyo that Nichiren taught and propagated. We've made up a different definition for his teaching. We're understanding it based on the limitations of our mind rather than on the mind of the Buddha. Okay? Going on to page 28. You must, going back to the Gosho, you should be able to read this from 3 and 4, so this must be down here somewhere. You must never think that any of the 80,000 sacred teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha's lifetime, or any of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and 3 existences, are outside yourself. Your practice of the Buddhist teachings will not relieve you of the sufferings of birth and death in the least, unless you perceive the true nature of your life, unless you perceive that you have a Buddha nature there already, that's what's going to propel you. If you seek enlightenment outside yourself, then you're performing even 10,000 practices and 10,000 good deeds will be in vain as it relates to the attainment of Buddhahood and having something that carries forward lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. It'll just be general causality. All right? It is like the case of a poor man who spends night and day counting his neighbor's wealth but gains not even half a coin. That is why the Tentai School's commentary states, unless one perceives the nature of one's life, the truth that you're already the Buddha, one cannot eradicate one's grave offenses. This passage implies that unless one perceives the nature of one's life, one's practice will become an endless, painful austerity. Okay? Because it's going to work less and less and less the longer you practice it incorrectly what happens when you take something and you distort it? You distort it. Therefore, such students of Buddhism are condemned as non-Buddhists. Okay? Do you understand? Great Concentration and Insight states that although they study Buddhism, because they view this outside of themselves as something not them, because their views are no different from those of non-Buddhists, all right, who don't perceive that they have this highest state already innately there. All the other schools, all the other teachings of Shakyamuni, you're going to have to go do this in another lifetime. Okay? All right, so going on with the text of this lecture from Mr. Saito. Nichiren Daishonin on page 28. Nichiren Daishonin again admonishes not to seek Buddhist teachings outside our lives. If we do, then although we perform even 10,000 practices and 10,000 good deeds, we cannot free ourselves from suffering. It is as futile as counting our neighbor's wealth. Ultimately, all our efforts will be wasted. For this reason, Nichiren urges us to perceive the true nature of our lives by seeking the ultimate law of Myoho Renge-kyo within us. If we seek the law outside us, we will not find it no matter how hard we try, because it's nowhere else to be found but here. Okay? And therefore our efforts will be an endless painful austerity, a frustration of why can't I figure this out? Why can't I get it to work for me the way it's supposed to work? Our karma will remain the same. Means we didn't change any karma through that effort. Without the slightest change, and everything will become the cause of further suffering. There are a lot of people right now you probably know that are suffering because of this reality. Frankly speaking, I know them anyhow. By maintaining the attitude that Buddhism is applicable only to others or to externals, we limit or trivialize our own lives. As mentioned earlier, some think that there are wonderful Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who exist apart from where they themselves are. Others believe they will be reborn into another world or paradise. These perspectives correspond to thinking the law is as outside oneself. The Lotus Sutra, however, teaches that the mystic law is revealed in our lives. Buddhas and Buddha lands exist nowhere but within us, not in some faraway place. Nichiren Buddhism, more specifically the practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, helps people cultivate to the fullest extent their capacity for Buddhahood. One of the Lotus Sutra's 7 parables is that of the jewel in the robe. A poor man visits a friend's house, becomes drunk on wine, and falls asleep. I think I was that guy once. The friend has to go out on business. Concerned about the poor man, he has a priceless jewel sewn into the lining of the man's robe before departing. The poor man eventually leaves, journeying throughout the world and suffering in poverty, unaware of his friend's generous gesture. If only he could become aware of the priceless jewel inside his robe already, he could alleviate much of his suffering. But he continues wandering unaware and in misery. That's from the Lotus Sutra. This story, of course, symbolizes people's unhappiness wandering through life without knowing the existence of the unlimited treasure house within their lives. This is what Nichiren is talking about when he writes, if you think the law is outside yourself. People seek the law everywhere but where it exists. within their own lives. So they suffer. When we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the law that exists within us, we should avoid succumbing to this pitfall. When we meet an obstacle, we must accept it as our challenge without blaming others for it. That way, we can savor the power of Myoho Renge-kyo and experience our own self-created happiness. With this perspective, practicing Buddhism exactly as Nichiren propagated it, we, the SGI members, have become well aware of the benefit of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? Not all of them, because I know for a fact myself, I didn't think this way for all of my practice. Okay? This came from continuing to seek, why am I still suffering? Because I know this works. Why? 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 And I kept asking nothing. That's all I wanted to know. Somehow something came along and I figured it out. As long as we practice faith as taught in the SGI, then none of our efforts will ever be wasted. While Nichiren admonishes that a coward cannot have any of his prayers answered, from the Strategy of the Lotus Sutra, page 1001 from WND1, he says, while Nichiren admonishes that a coward cannot have any of his prayers answered, our lives will never become an endless painful austerity because we courageously challenge ourselves to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and enjoy the benefit of Buddhist practice while sharing the mystic law with many loved ones and friends. In addition to becoming an endless painful austerity, Nichiren further explains that if we seek the law outside ourselves, then, in spite of appearances, our Buddhist practice will be no different from the practice of a non-Buddhist teaching. This describes exactly what is happening to Nichiren Shoshu followers. Although they enshrine the Gohonzon and chant the same Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the essence of their faith is their dependency on priests. And the priests teach them to have this dependency, frankly. All right? It's not elective. It's part of being a Nichiren Shoshu believer. As long as they ask priests to pray for them at their funerals, they think that everything will turn out okay. Remember what I told you? This is nothing other than seeking the law outside themselves. A practice that, despite its appearance, is non-Buddhist at its core. This is exactly how it is explained in the great teacher Tiantai's Great Concentration and Insight, which Nichiren cites here as saying, although they study Buddhism, their views are no different from those of non-Buddhists. Here, non-Buddhists refers to those who seem to believe in Buddhism, yet maintain non-Buddhist views. They read the teaching, but they really don't believe the teaching to the point that they take faith in the teaching. It's an opinion that is good to know. It expands their understanding, but it's really not what becomes their conviction of their identity, their true identity. Nichiren repeatedly warns us not to seek the law outside ourselves, and each of us must take his admonition to heart. If we run away from our obstacles and hope for some sort of external salvation, Gohonzon, please help me, then our practice will be no different from that of a non-Buddhist. Even though Nichiren stresses the importance of practicing fighting daimoku, from time to time people chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as if complaining. But if we chant while filled with complaint, then there will be no benefit. Whew. Be careful. Even though Nichiren stresses the importance of practicing fighting daimoku, from time to time people chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as if complaining. Anybody ever do that? Let me be the only one to raise my hand then. All right? But if we chant while filled with complaint, there will be no benefit. I found that was frustrating the shit out of me. All right? Let us always chant filled with conviction that we will definitely experience benefit, yes, that we will definitely win. To do so is to chant the fighting daimoku that Nichiren taught. Going on to the next section called The Roots of Goodness, back to the Gosho. Whether you chant the Buddha's name, recite the sutra, or merely offer flowers and incense, all your virtuous acts will implant benefits and roots of goodness in your life. With this conviction, you should strive in faith. Now, you could take that literally and think that you ought to have flowers on the Butsudan. That's not what that's talking about, okay? He's talking about what's the sincere conviction in your heart as it relates to fulfilling your mission as a bodhisattva of the earth, as an original disciple of the original teacher. Nichiren Daishonin states that every effort we make for the sake of Buddhism, so everyone, not just whether it was flowers or incense, do you understand? Sitting around this table right now discussing this, even if you're only listening to it, okay, and not even absorbing it, is still a cause, right? Okay, Nichiren Daishonin states that every effort we make for the sake of Buddhism, no matter how insignificant it may seem, will become a source of benefit. He encourages us to have conviction in this. In terms of our practice today, the acts listed above refer to all our actions to praise and respect the Gohonzon, such as chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, reciting portions of the Lotus Sutra, and making offerings. What is most important in making offerings is to do so out of sincerity. To make a sincere offering is to practice in accord with the mystic law, and each sincere offering is an action that will bring great benefit. But it's no longer a sincere offering if the reason that you're making the offering is in order to receive benefit. Do you understand that? Everybody understands that, right? A lot of people think I can just keep donating money and I should get financial fortune from that. And then they lose their shit when bad things happen financially after they've already given a shitload of money, right? It's because you weren't really giving an offering. You're trying to buy benefit. You can't buy benefit. Benefit isn't based on money. Benefit is based on conviction and faith and action, all right?
Yes.
It's cool if you got the money and you share that coin. I mean, again, Soka Gakkai is worth $4.7 billion right now. That's a lot of money. What is most important in making offerings, considering the number of people that are practicing, yeah, that's not bad. Somebody's been doing some offering. That's why I say the money to do Kosen Rufu is already there. What we need is the people that have the mind of faith. That's really what we need to do Kosen Rufu. Right. What is most important in making offerings is to do so out of sincerity. To make a sincere offering is to practice in accord with the mystic law. And each sincere offering is an action that will bring great benefit. Each sincere offering. Again, as Nichiren explains, the mystic law exists in your life. When you can believe this and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon, all your offerings will bring you infinite benefit and merit. President Ikeda states, everything you do for Kosen Rufu will become a source of great good fortune for you and your family. No matter how foolish people may envy or malign you, you will be praised many tenfold times by the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and heavenly deities throughout the universe and blessed with boundless fortune and benefit, savoring the greatest of all joys. The opinions of others, especially common mortals, doesn't mean anything. All right? Good or bad. This is the teaching of Buddhism. For those who rise to the challenge at a crucial moment, all hardships will be transformed into the power to attain the life state of Buddhahood. What does that mean? For those who rise to the challenge at a crucial moment. What's the crucial moment? What's rising to the challenge?
When you face difficulties.
When you face tremendous difficulties and you still have doubt-free faith. When the benefit doesn't seem to be there and you still have no question in your mind it's coming, and you're more than happy to continue to deal with whatever you're dealing with because you're a Buddha. And you're there to prove that all your prayers are answered, period. And if they all came easily, no one would be able to relate to the reality that you live. So you have to go through those so you can convey that to the people that are in the midst of struggling. You can say, hey, where's your faith right now? Are you sure you got your head screwed on straight? How are you chanting? How are you perceiving the Gohonzon? Are you sure you're perceiving it as your own life? Or are you perceiving it as something outside yourself? The crucial moment is when we could go south or continue. All right? It's win or lose. For those who rise to the challenge at a crucial moment, all hardships will be transformed into power to attain the life state of Buddhahood. Nothing is wasted in Buddhism. See how big that star is? There is no downside to faith. None. All of you will conclude your lives like a magnificent sunset. In contrast, and this is the truth, I know this from my own life. In contrast, those who persecute you, noble bodhisattvas, people as praiseworthy as the Buddha, you will receive their just recompense and topple to ruin in the end. This is perfectly clear as we observe the fates of the ingrates who have abandoned their faith and betrayed their fellow members. The law of cause and effect is uncompromising, and your protection is also uncompromising. It will always be there. You don't have to worry about people that give you shit. They will. You don't have to want bad things to happen to them. They will. Okay? If you're really the Buddha, you should have enough compassion to say, hey, cut him some slack, he's an idiot. Okay? It's a cool thing. All right? The law of cause and effect is uncompromising. Going on to page 34. Ordinary beings are the entities of enlightenment. You are all Buddhas. You should be calling yourselves that. You should refer to yourselves that. You should see yourselves as that. The Vimalakirti, I think is how you pronounce that. I'm trying to get that better at my Indian stuff. The Vimalakirti Sutra states that when one seeks the Buddha's emancipation in the minds of ordinary beings, one finds that ordinary beings are the entities of enlightenment and that the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana. It also states that if the minds of living beings are impure, their land is also impure. But if their minds are pure, so is their land. There are not two lands, pure or impure, in themselves. The difference lies solely in the good or evil of our minds. It is the same with a Buddha and an ordinary being. When deluded, one is called an ordinary being, but when enlightened, one is called a Buddha. This is similar to a tarnished mirror that will shine like a jewel when polished. That was from page 4. Okay? Quoting from the Vimalakirti Sutra, Nichiren Daishonin explains that the attainment of Buddhahood depends upon one's intention. So what did I say last week? You'll never attain Buddhahood unless you seek it. It won't come about by casually. You have to decide, I want to have this conviction. You must seek Buddhahood. All right? Quoting, Nichiren Daishonin explains that the attainment of Buddhahood depends on one's intention. Ordinary beings are the entities of enlightenment. This means that the wisdom of a Buddha's enlightenment does not exist apart from the people. Although the minds of ordinary people fall sway to the influence of earthly desires, a Buddha's enlightenment appears only in the lives of ordinary people. The sufferings of birth and death are nirvana means that nirvana, the truly peaceful state of a Buddha's enlightenment, will be realized in the lives of ordinary people who experience the sufferings of birth and death. Both of these Buddhist concepts explain the Buddhas and ordinary people are not separate entities, and that whether one is a Buddha or an ordinary person is solely a function of his or her mind. You're the one that makes you the Buddha or keeps you from being the Buddha. Through elevating one's state of mind, the life of an ordinary person riddled with suffering and earthly desires can be transformed into the life of enlightenment. These concepts illustrate that an ordinary person does not need to be reborn as someone else or pass from this existence to another world in order to attain enlightenment. Instead, an ordinary person's life transformation is immediate, as expressed by the Japanese word soku, which translates as are or identical with. In this regard, Nichiren states the single word identical is symbolic of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo from the OTT page 72, and I was going to read that to you, but we're over time. I'll try and catch it next week, if not another time. In other words, through the power of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, ordinary persons, that has to do with the parable of the Phantom City. In other words, through the power of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, ordinary persons can transform their life condition into the state of Buddhahood without having to fundamentally change who they are. I didn't have to become pure. I can be stained by the 5 impurities and still be the Buddha. That's the cool thing. Okay? I don't have to be priest-like. I don't have to be anything other than who I am. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo has the power to transform at once a life of delusion, which is not perceiving my true identity, into a life of enlightenment, which is perceiving myself in my original state. By chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we can change all the problems we face into a source of hope and happiness. Happiness is not the absence of hardships. Rather, we can use hardships as the springboard toward authentic happiness. Those who suffer can become the happiest. Buddhism expounds this mystic transformation. To believe that one's life and the life of the Buddha are identical means to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with constant confidence. That's conviction again. That's Mugi Washin one more time. Identical corresponds to faith as expressed by the thought, no matter what happens, this is like you're thinking this, no matter what happens, I will continue practicing with sincerity. Establishing such firm conviction is what it means to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. Continuing with those, telling you the kinds of correct thoughts that express this. I will never lose faith in Myoho Renge-kyo, Mugi Washi. I will never retreat in faith and will always challenge myself no matter what. I will never disgrace the Gohonzon. I am a bodhisattva of the earth. And he goes further. I will break through anything by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. When we develop such resolute faith, when those are the kinds of things you think while you're faced with really the shit going upside down, when you're in front of the Gohonzon, you're not freaking, you're confident, you're going to be the badass that you are. That's what happens. When we develop such resolute faith, we have attained Buddhahood in this lifetime. Frankly speaking, he says it right there. It's just a matter of your faith. It's a matter of your conviction. It's a matter of how you perceive yourself. Some, however, reject this view of Buddhahood, seeing it as a fixed point to be attained once and for all. Others insist that people cannot be described as truly having attained Buddhahood unless they accomplish a goal that clearly distinguishes them from unenlightened ordinary people. But the life of Buddhahood is not something that appears once and forever, nor is it an image to be attained through some specific accomplishment. According to President Toda, attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime means reaching a state of absolute happiness that cannot be destroyed by anything. That's Mugi Washi. In the state of Buddhahood, and the unlimited power of Myoho Renge-kyo manifests in the most appropriate form at the most appropriate time. Because you live in the 9 worlds. You're not going to suddenly be floating around, I'm the Buddha, I'm the Buddha, I'm the Buddha. That isn't the way it works. I'm still a 9-world dude, and I'll kick your ass every time about everything. Okay? The unlimited power of the mystic law cannot be summed up in one particular word. It is expressed in human life as life force, wisdom, compassion, courage, endurance, good fortune, a sense of security, and so on. Again, these qualities manifest when needed, enabling us to live correctly, and it is our strong faith that unleashes the infinite power of the mystic law. Buddhahood is revealed in one's life through faith, through one's mind, or strong intention. For this reason, Nichiren explains, quoting from the Vimalakirti Sutra, that ordinary beings and Buddhas are not separate existences, and that the impure land where ordinary beings dwell and the pure land of the Buddha are not separate places. First, Nichiren explains the real difference between pure and impure lands. He says when the minds of the people are impure, so is their land. When the minds of the people are pure, their land is also pure. State of mind is what determines the state of the land. Next, he explains the difference between an ordinary person and a Buddha as being solely whether one is deluded or enlightened. That's the only difference. And Nichiren refutes as being not truly Buddhist the view that the pure land of perfect bliss is located far to the west, while the world we live in is the impure Sahe world. To seek happiness elsewhere instead of where one resides is related to the point of view that separates a pure land from an impure land. For those in the world of hell, anywhere they live, even if it is a palace, becomes a realm of hellish suffering. For those in the world of heavenly beings, even an ordinary place becomes a palace of enjoyment. For those in the world of Buddhahood or Bodhisattvas, their land becomes the place where they fight for the realization of peace through connecting with people. The life of a subjective being and that being's external environment are interrelated. Increasingly, people are embracing this view. Because of the oneness of life and its environment, what is most important is to elevate the life condition of human beings, ours included. All right? Although there are many important issues facing today's world, the most fundamental issue is the reformation of human beings. This extremely important concept, the interconnectedness of life and its environment and of all things, is the underlying idea behind President Ikeda's efforts to promote peace, culture, and education through dialogue. President Ikeda explains, on the spiritual level, however, I think we can say that the life state of someone who has attained Buddhahood is what President Toda described as great hope. In actuality, this great hope stems from inner confidence in one's ability to attain Buddhahood and one's grasp of the meaning of life, as well as conviction in the inherent ability of all people to become enlightened. And that's also from this volume 1 of The Wonderful World of Nichiren's writings. I'll read that to you at some point. This is it, polishing the mirror, and I think we're done. Yeah. All right, 2 more pages. Polishing the mirror on page 39. A mind now clouded by the illusion, from the Go Show. A mind now clouded by illusions of the innate darkness of life is like a tarnished mirror. But when polished, it is sure to become like a clear mirror, reflecting the essential nature of phenomena and the true aspect of reality. Arouse deep faith and diligently polish your mirror day and night. How should you polish it? Only by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo from page 4. Through the practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and reciting portions of the Lotus Sutra, we can polish the mirror of our lives, which is covered by the karmic defilement of slander of the law in previous lifetimes, and reveal the pure, vibrant life of Buddhahood inherent within us. It is important to note that the mirror in this analogy remains the same before and after polishing. It's still a mirror. I'm still Tom. Its functionality, however, will be completely different after it is polished. Likewise, although we do not become different human beings through the practice, we don't have to, our lives will be purified and how we function will be vastly different. Because we now tell the truth. We now lead people to the truth rather than living in delusion. Through our consistent practice, we can rid our lives of the karmic impurities created through slander of the law in our present and past lifetimes and bring forth our innate Buddhahood, which is pure and powerful. Conclusion. I was wrong. This is the last bit. Okay, this is still page 4. If you chant Myoho Renge-kyo with deep faith in this principle, you are certain, this is the Gosho again. If you chant Myoho Renge-kyo with deep faith in this principle, you are certain to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. That is why the sutra states, after I have passed into extinction, one should accept and uphold this sutra. Such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. Never doubt in the slightest, respectfully. Maintain your faith and attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. At the very end of this letter, Nichiren Daishonin emphasized the importance of faith. Nichiren declares that with faith we can absolutely attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. He quotes a passage from the Lotus Sutra, Supernatural Powers of the Thus Come One chapter, which assures us of Buddhahood as a result of our practice as bodhisattvas of the earth. It tells us that after the passing of Shakyamuni, those who believe in and embrace the Lotus Sutra will surely attain Buddhahood. Once again, Nichiren admonishes us for our disbelief, saying, never doubt in the slightest. Because he says he knows that you may not really buy into this first pass. President Ikeda writes, the bodhisattvas of the earth are in fact Buddhas. Let me say that again. President Ikeda writes, the bodhisattvas of the earth, are you bodhisattvas of the earth?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're all Buddhas. The bodhisattvas of the earth are in fact Buddhas, but the term Buddha is inevitably taken to mean a being who is somehow transcendental or superior to ordinary human beings. The bodhisattvas of the earth thoroughly devote themselves to the way of bodhisattvas as people who carry out Buddhist practice. They thoroughly devote themselves to the way of human beings. This point is tremendously significant. The restoration of truth and belief in humanity will be the key to religion in the 21st century. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.